There comes a time in every person's life when they look around and realize, this isn't where I was meant to be. Not because fate was cruel or because the world was unfair, but because somewhere along the road, I stopped choosing. I started reacting. I stopped leading and began drifting. And that slow drift, that quiet, passive slide away from purpose. That's how people lose their life without ever dying. Let me speak to you without fluff, without decoration, without the sugarcoat you've been fed your whole life. Your life right now is the sum total of your decisions, not your intentions, not your background, not your talent, just your decisions. Every excuse you've ever leaned on is a thief in disguise. It doesn't matter who doubted you. It doesn't matter what obstacles stood in your way. Because the truth, the one truth that changes everything, is this. You are more powerful than your circumstances. You were never meant to coast. You were never meant to blend in. You were born to take control. But to do that, you must begin with a decision that most people never make. A clear, final, non-negotiable decision about what you truly want. Not the vague, I want to be successful. Not the weak, someday I'll change. But a ruthless, specific declaration. A line drawn in the sand that says, this is who I am. This is where I'm going, and I will not be moved. You see, the world doesn't respond to noise. It responds to clarity, to certainty, to force. You don't need more time. You don't need another sign. You need direction. You need purpose that sets your bones on fire, purpose that doesn't ask for permission to be pursued. Most people are running on autopilot. They wake up, scroll, work, eat, distract, sleep, and repeat. They complain about where they are, but they've never once sat down in silence and asked, what am I building? Why do I even wake up in the morning? And until you answer that, nothing changes. Because motion without direction is wasted life. But once you define your aim, everything changes. Time sharpens. Distractions dissolve. The noise of the world turns into silence. Because now, you're hunting something. And when you're hunting something real, you stop playing small. You stop needing applause. You stop waiting for people to understand you. This is what separates the few who rise from the masses who drown in mediocrity. Definiteness of purpose. A decision so strong, so clear, so alive inside you that every action, every hour, every moment becomes sacred. Your calendar becomes a weapon. Your habits become armor. Your discipline becomes a declaration. And here's what most won't tell you. Discipline isn't about restriction. It's about freedom. Because the undisciplined are slaves. Slaves to their phones. Slaves to their cravings. Slaves to fear, to comfort, to weakness. But the disciplined man, the disciplined woman, they walk free. They do not wait for motivation. They do not wait for good weather. They do not wait for someone to clap for them. They rise, they move, they act. Not because it feels good, but because they made a vow to themselves that they refuse to break. You will never conquer anything until you conquer yourself. And self-conquest begins with a simple, brutal truth. You do not have the luxury of negotiating with weakness. Every time you scroll past your goals, every time you say tomorrow, every time you choose ease over purpose, you are casting a vote for a smaller life, and the cost is everything. But when you decide, truly decide, to take control, you start making choices that match your mission, not your mood, not your fears, not your past. You start designing your life with precision. And the first tool in that design is your plan. Not a dream, not a hope, a plan, broken down, measured, tracked, executed. Because no empire was ever built off emotion. It was built off blueprints. And that's what you must create, a blueprint for the life you refuse to live without. Most people think they're failing because they're not talented enough. Not true. They're failing because they're disorganized, because they drift, because they don't act with force. And if you want to change that, it starts with your time, your day, your next hour. If someone looked at your schedule right now, would they see your mission? Would they see your discipline? Would they see your plan in action? Or would they see chaos, hesitation, randomness? You want change? Then you must become the kind of person who moves without needing to be pushed. You must become the kind of person who acts without needing applause, because the clock is not your friend, and the world doesn't wait. The fire in your gut, the one that says I was made for more, it will die unless you act. Not think, not wish. Act. Action is the cure. It always has been. You can't outthink fear, you must outmove it. Because fear feeds on silence. It feeds on hesitation. It feeds on the space between decision and execution. And the moment you act, you starve it. You starve your doubts. You starve your excuses. It's not about feeling brave. It's about acting before the fear can grab your throat. Because the window for action is small. Every second you hesitate, your mind starts to negotiate. It starts whispering comfort, starts seducing you with logic that sounds like protection but is actually poison. You tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow. I just need more clarity. I'll wait until it's the right time. And every one of those sentences is a dagger to your dream. Because the right time, it's not coming. Clarity doesn't come before the move, it comes after. The person who moves learns. The person who acts grows. The one who waits watches life happen to other people. And maybe that's been you. Maybe you've been waiting for signs, for motivation, for permission. But let me ask you, how much longer are you willing to wait? Another year? Another excuse? Another breakdown before you finally break through? You don't need more time. You need one bold, defiant act of self-respect. You need to move. Because when you move even slightly, the world begins to move around you. And your brain, your body, they come alive with possibility. But even then, it won't be easy. Because real change is not a surge. It's not a dramatic movie moment. It's a grind. It's waking up on day 6 when no one's clapping, when no one's watching, and doing the work anyway. Discipline is not something you flip on when life feels good. It is something you train until it becomes who you are. Because discipline is not punishment, it's precision. It's your internal system of honor. When everyone else sleeps, you rise. When they scroll, you study. When they gossip, you build. When they drift, you dominate. This is how you regain control. Not in one grand transformation, but in small repeated acts of war against your lower self. You start planning your days like they matter. Because they do. You begin organizing your environment. Because chaos kills clarity. You stop letting randomness dictate your routine. Because randomness is a thief. And then, something clicks. Momentum takes over. The habits you once had to force become your new rhythm. And you realize you don't need to be motivated anymore. Because now you're trained. Your body doesn't ask, it acts. Your mind doesn't beg, it executes. That's the power of systems, of structure, of living by design, not emotion. You see, most people don't fail because they're weak. They fail because they rely on willpower alone. But willpower is a spark. It fades, it burns out. Systems are the flame. They stay lit when your emotions go dark. They keep you moving when the fire inside flickers. So build your system. Plan your days. Track your hours. Write your goals. Measure your progress like your life depends on it. Because it does. And if you think that sounds excessive, ask yourself this. Is your dream not worth that level of obsession? Is your future not worthy of that kind of precision? Or are you secretly hoping that success will happen by accident? That your goals will arrive if you just wait long enough? Let me break the spell. Nothing arrives uninvited. Nothing worth having shows up without force. And force comes from design. from execution, from acting now, not when the stars align. Too many people are walking around hoping the world will give them clarity. But the world doesn't hand out clarity. It rewards action. It follows those who lead themselves. That's why the ones who move, even imperfectly, outrun those who wait perfectly. They fail faster. They learn quicker. They win sooner. This is what it means to take control. Not that everything goes your way, but that you rise every time it does, that you adjust without abandoning your aim, that your mission survives your mistakes. Because you will stumble, you will fall, and you will want to quit. But the difference between the one who controls their life and the one who watches from the sidelines is that the one in control doesn't flinch. They've already decided. There's no more debate. There's only motion. And that motion, it becomes identity. And identity becomes destiny. Destiny is not reserved for the chosen few. It's built by those who choose themselves. Not once, not when it's easy, but daily, through decision and discipline. The world will try to pull you off track with noise, with comfort, with fiction dressed as logic. It will whisper that you're tired, that you've done enough, that you deserve a break. But what you truly deserve is the life you've dreamed about, the one that keeps showing up in your mind when everything else goes quiet, the one that stirs your heart when no one else is around. And that life isn't built on comfort, it's built on control. Control over your focus, control over your time, control over your thoughts, your actions, your energy. Control doesn't mean perfection. It means ownership. It means if your life is messy, you don't blame. If your routine is chaotic, you don't complain, you correct. If your mind is cloudy, you don't scroll. You sit with yourself and get honest. You want to win? Start with the truth. The brutal, unfiltered truth. Where are you slipping? Where are you lying to yourself? Where are you pretending you're trying, but you're really just wishing? Because the people who rise, the ones who create, who lead, who dominate their space, they don't avoid the truth. They chase it. They invite it. They get obsessed with seeing themselves clearly, even when it hurts. They measure what matters. They remove what's draining. They surround themselves with people who demand more, not less. And that's another hard truth. Your environment either sharpens you or softens you. If the people around you are co-signing your comfort, you're not surrounded, you're sedated. If your space is cluttered, your focus is leaking. If your calendar is full of noise, your purpose is starving. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to be ruthless. Ruthless with what gets your attention. Ruthless with what gets your time. Ruthless with who gets access to your energy, because your energy is everything. It's your fuel, and it runs out. You can't pour it into gossip, distractions, excuses, and still have enough left to build your empire. You can't give your best hours to things that don't matter and expect your goals to thrive on scrap. If it doesn't align with your purpose, it doesn't belong in your life. Not now. Not anymore. You are in a season of building. You are in a chapter where momentum is everything. And momentum doesn't come from sprints. It comes from rhythm. Daily. Relentless. Focused rhythm. That's where greatness is born. Not in intensity, but in consistency. Not in the shout, but in the whisper you keep every single day. And that whisper, that voice inside you that says, keep going, even when nothing is happening, that's your edge. That's your advantage. Because most people quit in the silence. They collapse when the applause fades. They disappear when the excitement dies. But the builder, the one who has decided, they thrive in the silence. Because they're not working for approval. They're working for alignment. And alignment is louder than praise. It's deeper than motivation. It's the knowing that you're walking in the direction of your own design, not someone else's. You were not born to blend. You were not born to repeat the cycle. You were born to break it, to lead yourself, to carve a path so clear, so powerful, that others rise just by watching you walk it. But before you lead anyone, you must lead yourself. You must become the kind of person who keeps promises made in private. You must become the kind of person who doesn't need hype to move, just purpose. Purpose is your compass. Discipline is your path. Action is your fuel. And control is the result. Control of your day, control of your mind, control of your future. You've been given the tools. You felt the fire. Now the only question left is, will you act? Not when it's dramatic, but now, quietly, consistently. Because you don't need another breakthrough. You need follow-through. You need to stop starting over. You need to stop treating discipline like a phase and start treating it like an identity. When you say you're going to do something, you do it. When the plan gets hard, you stick to it. When the results are slow, you trust the process. That's how control is earned, through repetition, through rhythm, through mastery of the mundane. The difference between the dreamer and the builder doesn't wait for the perfect mood. They work, they execute, they create results while others are still perfecting their vision boards. You don't get paid for what you say. You get paid for what you do. You don't change your life through hope, you change it through force. So stop saying someday. Start saying now. Stop writing ideas. Start building systems. Stop negotiating with weakness. Start proving to yourself that you are who you said you were, even when no one is watching. You don't rise when the world tells you it's your time. You rise when you tell the world, I'm ready, whether you see me or not. Because greatness isn't granted, it's claimed. And it's claimed in the dark, when no one's clapping, when no one's validating, when the only thing pushing you forward is the fire you refuse to let die. That's what separates the relentless from the regular. That's what defines control. When you don't just have vision, you have execution. When your daily life is not a reflection of your feelings, but your mission. And that mission, it deserves more than your spare time, more than your leftover energy. It deserves your full presence, your highest standard, your total commitment. Because you weren't built to dabble. You weren't wired to tiptoe through life, hoping nothing breaks. You were designed to conquer, but you cannot conquer what you refuse to commit to. So stop living in fragments. Stop chasing 100 small things that mean nothing. Pick one thing that matters and give it everything. That's how power is built, not in scattered ambition, but in focused obsession. Let the others mock your intensity. Let them question your pace. Let them call you extreme, because while they settle, you sharpen. While they watch, you move. While they float, you fight. And you fight not against them, but against everything inside you that wants to quit. That soft voice that says, it's too hard. That craving for ease. That temptation to slow down because you've done enough. You fight it. Not with anger, but with action. Not with noise, but with discipline. Not with words, but with result. Because at some point, you stop needing to talk about the life you want. You just start living it. You build it. You protect it. You walk it out one step at a time, even when your legs shake. And that walk, it's sacred. It's not glamorous. It's not flashy. But it's yours. And as you walk, something happens. You start to feel different. You start to see yourself as someone you can trust. Your confidence stops being borrowed. It becomes earned. Earned through sacrifice, through repetition, through every time you said no to the easy thing and yes to the right one. That is the deepest kind of self-respect, following through with yourself. It's looking in the mirror and knowing you didn't fold when it got hard. That you didn't let your feelings write your story. That you showed up when no one else would. People talk about confidence like it's a mood. It's not. Confidence is evidence, and you earn it every time you execute, especially when it's hard. This is where most people fall. They think transformation happens when it's inspiring. They wait for momentum. They wait for signs. they wait for a reason. But the committed, they don't wait for inspiration. They create it through movement. They wake up and do what they said they'd do, not because it feels good, but because they said it. They treat their word like law, and that changes everything. Because when your word becomes law, your life becomes structured. There's no more maybe, no more later, only execution, only alignment, only movement in the direction of your design. You become dangerous, not because you're louder, not because you're smarter, but because you are relentless. You are locked in, you are not swayed by delay or denial. And in a world addicted to comfort and noise, a person with relentless clarity becomes unstoppable. That's what control really is. Not the illusion of perfection, not rigid discipline for the sake of image, but deep internal order, built on truth, protected by action, fueled by a vision so strong, quitting isn't even an option anymore. You've heard it said before, "I'll do it later." Those 4 words have killed more dreams than failure ever could, because later becomes never. Someday becomes no day. And the life that could have been fades into regret. But you're not going to be that story. You're not going to be the one who almost made it. You're going to be the one who took the pen back and rewrote the ending. You're going to be the one who got tired of waiting and decided to build. Right here, right now, with what you have. As you are, because that's all you need. Not perfection, not a better background. Just hunger, clarity, and the decision to never again leave your future in someone else's hands. The world is not waiting for you. It's moving with or without you. So choose. Choose to lead. Choose to rise. Choose to own every part of your journey. The pain, the setbacks, the wins, the grind. Because once you choose, once you truly decide, that's when the world begins to move around you. Doors open, people shift, paths emerge. Not because of luck, but because of movement. The kind of movement that comes from a soul on fire, a mind that's locked in, a life that no longer belongs to circumstance, but to purpose. Purpose doesn't whisper, it roars. And when you finally listen, really listen, everything that once felt confusing begins to make sense. Every struggle, every setback, every lonely hour suddenly becomes fuel, because now you're not just surviving, you're sculpting a life that reflects your fire, not your fears, a future that mirrors your decisions, not your doubts. And to do that, to keep rising, you'll need one final ingredient: unbreakable commitment, not just when it's convenient, not just when it feels good, but when it hurts. When it's invisible, when no one claps, no one texts, no one watches. Commitment is the invisible force that carries you when everything else collapses. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, consistent, ruthless. It's what makes you show up again and again and again, long after most people would have given up, because most people stop at the first obstacle. They hit resistance and turn around. They hit failure and call it fate, but not you, because you've chosen to be relentless. You've chosen to stop asking for life to be easier and instead made yourself stronger. You've stopped chasing motivation and trained discipline. You've stopped waiting for support and learned how to support yourself. You've stopped hoping for someone to rescue you and finally realized you were the rescuer all along. And that changes everything. Because now you don't just move for results. You move because it's who you are: a builder, a leader, a creator. One who doesn't let the grind dull their flame, but lets it sharpen their edge. One who doesn't need the storm to stop before they act, but builds in the middle of it. One who understands that freedom isn't something you stumble into, it's forged. And it's forged through persistence, backed by accountability, fueled by daily fire, because without persistence, talent dies. Without accountability, vision drifts. And without action, even the greatest idea becomes dust. So make it your vow to be the one who keeps showing up, to be the one who does the reps, to be the one who moves forward even if it's inch by inch. You don't need to leap every day. You just need to refuse to retreat. You just need to outlast the voice in your head that says, "This is too much." You need to silence the world that wants you quiet, small, obedient, and instead rise as the force you were always meant to be. Because once you do, once you stop pausing, stop hiding, stop playing small, you'll realize the world was never rejecting you. It was waiting for you to step into your truth, to step into your power, to step into life like you were meant to control it, not survive it. And let's be clear, this isn't about motivation anymore. This isn't about feeling good. This is about building a legacy, about becoming someone your younger self would be proud of, and your future self will thank you for. It's about making your name mean something, not to the world, but to you. It's about knowing, deep in your soul, that when it was hard, you didn't fold, that when it hurt, you didn't run, that when no one believed, you kept believing anyway. That is power, that is freedom, that is control. And that control? It's not found in chasing outcomes. It's not found in waiting for the big break. It's found in the choice to rise daily, defiantly, without needing to be told. You are not here to repeat the past. You are not here to drift like the rest. You are here to create, to command, to conquer. So start treating every hour like a vote, every decision like a brick, every action like a contract with your future, because you are not just working toward your life, you are shaping it with every step. And if that's true, if every moment is a seed, then plant with intention, water it with discipline, protect it with boundaries. Let your life become so structured, so clear, so powerfully aligned that nothing, no excuse, no doubt, no delay can break your rhythm. Because once you own your rhythm, you own your results. And once you own your results, you own your destiny. There's no more waiting, no more hoping, no more when the time is right. The time is now. The power is yours. The pen is in your hands. So write the life, live the mission, and become the force you were always born to be. Because life doesn't bend for the timid, it bows for the relentless. And now the only question left is, will you take control? The moment you say yes to control, the universe listens differently. It doesn't mean everything becomes easy. It means you've finally stepped into alignment. And when you're aligned, mind, body, action, purpose, even the hard things start to feel right. Not painless, not effortless, but right. Because when you're building something that matters, the pain has purpose. The resistance becomes data. The setbacks become sharpening stones. You stop flinching at discomfort. You stop panicking in the unknown. And instead, you start walking straight into the storm. Not because you love the chaos, but because you know who you'll be on the other side of it. That version of you, the one that doesn't fold under pressure, the one that keeps showing up when life throws curveballs, the one that chooses growth over escape, commitment over comfort, fire over fear. That version isn't found in books. It's not built in theory. It's forged through pressure, sculpted by repetition, born in silence and crowned in results. And here's the truth most people won't tell you. Your future doesn't belong to the most talented. It belongs to the most prepared, the most consistent, the most relentless. You don't need to be extraordinary. You just need to be unbreakable. Because life isn't testing your skill, it's testing your seriousness. It's asking, will you keep going when it's not fun? Will you keep executing when the emotions wear off? Will you keep rising when no one's cheering? That's the test. Not how loud you can talk when you're inspired, but how quietly you can grind when you're not. You want to be a leader? Then lead your own habits. Lead your own mind. Lead your own damn day. That means setting the alarm and getting up. That means writing the goal and moving toward it. That means setting the standard and refusing to break it. Not because it's easy, but because it's who you are now. You've shifted. You've evolved. You've buried the old version of you, the one who waited, the one who delayed, the one who doubted. And in their place stands someone new, someone dangerous. Not because they're angry, but because they're clear. Someone unstoppable, not because they're perfect, but because they're committed. You want to feel proud? Then stop chasing pride and start chasing progress. The real kind. The kind that doesn't care about likes, shares, followers. The kind that happens when the phone's off, the door's shut, and it's just you versus your excuses. That's where transformation lives. In the quiet, in the discipline, in the choices no one sees but you. And every one of those choices matters. They either strengthen your future or steal it. So choose wisely. Speak less. Do more. Expect nothing. Deliver everything. Because the world owes you nothing. Your dream owes you nothing. But if you give it everything, if you pour your mind, your soul, your effort, your time, you will not be denied. You will rise. You will grow. You will take the life that was meant for you, not by force, but by consistency, by design, by the refusal to let another day be wasted on maybe. Let this be the day your legacy began. Let this be the moment you stopped hoping and started building. Because control isn't about domination. It's about alignment, about peace, about waking up and knowing I am no longer at the mercy of anything but my mission. And when that's true, when your life flows from purpose, you don't just live, you lead. You elevate. You become the proof, the living, breathing proof that a human being fully decided, fully disciplined, fully awake can become unstoppable. There's a kind of peace that only comes when you've taken full responsibility. It's not loud, it doesn't look glamorous, but it's solid, like steel. When you know that every piece of your life, from the way your morning starts to the way your week ends, is shaped by your choices, you stop playing the blame game. You stop waiting for circumstances to be ideal. You stop pointing fingers and start building foundation. That's what real control gives you. Peace. Not the peace of passivity, but the peace of power. The peace that comes from knowing you are the one behind the wheel. And when you live that way, when you take full ownership, something else happens too. You begin to move differently. You speak with weight. You look people in the eye, not for validation, but because you no longer fear being seen. You walk into a room with quiet certainty, not because of arrogance, but because of alignment. This isn't about becoming better than anyone else. This is about becoming the version of yourself you were born to be, the version you abandoned when fear took the mic. Because fear has a voice. It shows up sounding reasonable. It speaks in logic that sounds safe. What if you fail? What if they laugh? What if you're not good enough? And for most people, that's enough to make them sit down, enough to shrink, enough to settle. But you're not most people. You're the one who hears that voice and walks anyway. You're the one who feels the fear and still makes the call, writes the words, shows up to the gym, makes the move. You've trained your nervous system to stop running, to stop hiding, to lean into the fire and use it to forge something stronger. That's what separates the masters from the mediocre. Not that they don't feel fear, but that they act before it gets loud. And each time you do that, each time you move before fear grows teeth, you build a new layer of courage. You grow trust with yourself, and that trusts everything. Because when you trust you, when your word means something to you, you no longer need permission. You no longer need external rewards to keep going. You become your own fuel, your own fire, your own source of momentum. Most people don't fail because they didn't have the tools. They fail because they didn't have a system for showing up, especially on the hard days. They wait for motivation to carry them, but motivation is seasonal. Discipline is forever. So build your rhythm. Design your routine like your future depends on it, because it does. Control doesn't mean you never rest. It means your rest is intentional. It's earned. It's scheduled. It's part of the system, not an escape from it. That's the difference between the professional and the amateur. The professional rests to recover. The amateur rests to avoid. And this life you're building, it can't be built by avoidance. It demands presence, engagement, full spectrum effort. Yes, there will be days when it's lonely. Yes, there will be days when you question everything, but that's where growth lives. In the questions, in the stretching, in the doing of what feels unnatural, until it becomes automatic. You don't need to be perfect, you need to be precise. You need to stop living wide and start living deep. Master a few things, build a few sacred, non-negotiable habits, and then defend them like your life depends on them, because your success doesn't come from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do consistently. Every morning you wake up and choose intention, you win. Every time you shut down distractions and lean into purpose, you win. Every time you push past your emotions and do what must be done, you win. And those wins, they stack, they compound, until one day you look back and realize you're living inside the vision you once only imagined. That's how legacy is built, not through one grand gesture, but through 1,000 small, invisible victories. Victories no one sees, no one celebrates, but you feel them, and they change you. Because every time you choose structure over chaos, clarity over comfort, action over anxiety, you reclaim another piece of your life. You don't just feel powerful, you become power in motion. And that kind of person, they're impossible to ignore, because the world can't resist those who are fully alive. So if you've been drifting, if you've been silent, if you've been stuck in the in-between, waiting for something to click, let this be your moment. The line in the sand, the stake in the ground, the breath before the breakthrough. Because you were not born to repeat the patterns of the past. You were born to break them, to rebuild, to rise. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are one decision away. And that decision, it starts with a whisper, a sentence, a vow. I will take control, not someday, not when it's easy. Now, even if it's hard, especially because it's hard. That's where it begins. That's where you begin.